Today we've got your full in-depth review on the newer Tamron 28-200mm F2.8-5.6. This is a really interesting lens. This is going to be one of the newest all-in-one shooters for your Sony E-mount and definitely worth a second look. Let's get started. Welcome back, guys, and thanks for joining me as we check out the Tamron 28-200, the latest and greatest in all-in-one shooters for the Sony E-mount system. And as usual, we're going to be breaking down this lens in its entirety, everything that matters, guys, and here's some specs to get you going on it. But if you haven't seen one of my videos, my name's Stefan Malloch. I do a lot of photography and filmmaking news reviews and tutorials, so if you do enjoy this type of content and you like this video and you want a chance to win lenses just like this and all sorts of awesome stuff, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and join the community. As usual, we'll be jumping right into the build and features category. Let's check it out. So let's have a look at a quick unboxing, which reveals not a heck of a lot, your typical Tamron basics, and let's answer who this lens is for. It's not a professional lens and will most likely be found in a beginner to intermediate's bag. Although this lens can produce some incredible results, it is limited by its features and build quality, which we will get into. Besides a bit of paperwork, all that's included is the lens and a lens hood. On first inspection, the feel and look of this lens is quite good. It's very similar to the 28-75 and the 17-28, of course. With the lens hood installed, it measures 5 3/4 inches, and fully extended it's just under 8 inches. With the lens hood off for travel, it's just 4.5 inches long, and weighing only 1 1/4 pounds makes this a great travel and all-around lens for pretty much any use. The zoom ring is a pretty decently small throw for what it is, and it is quite stiff and confident. The focus ring is smaller and turns easier, and like most of Tamron's newer lenses, the manual focus experience does leave something to be desired. It does have a single zoom lock switch, which is the only button or switch that you'll find on this lens. It is made with a mainly plastic or composite material, which does feel good for what it is, but you might notice that it picks up smudges and scratches quite easily. On the front, you'll find 67mm filter threads, as well as Tamron's patented coatings to help with ghosting and flare. On the back, a nice sturdy, tight-fitting metal mount, as well as the inclusion of a little rubber gasket for weather sealing. Overall, the build is decent and the features are a bit lacking, but this is a very well-priced lens, and there's always going to be give and take. I give it 3.5 stars for build. Now before we dive into the performance of this lens, let's talk about the value for a second. Now coming in at around $729 US, there's tons of value in this lens. If you're not looking to spend a heck of a lot on lenses or you don't have a big budget, this one's going to do a lot of things decently. There's really not many comparables. You might have seen the Sony 24-240, and there's lenses like the 24-105 as well with not much reach, but as far as all-in-one lenses are concerned, they're few and far between. Of course, I have a review on all of these lenses as well as comparison videos, so check that out if you want some more detail. But as far as the Tamron 28-200 is concerned, it's really hard to beat at this price point. Not to mention it has at least a 6-year warranty compared to the Sony's 1. I give it 4.5 stars for value. Now let's jump in and have a look at the performance of this lens. And this is what really matters, of course, starting off with the autofocus. The autofocus capabilities and system in this lens are good. It's not great, it does have a few issues and limitations, and as you can see here in a lower light situation in video, it actually does a pretty decent job. It's quick and smooth. So let's have a look at how this lens performs when it comes to continuous autofocus and using a fast moving subject. Again, it's got the RXD motors that you'd find in the 28-75, a great silent motor that's really accurate, and in this case, the 28-200, I find that it's just not as accurate or as quick. So because of the bigger focal range, it's going to have obviously a bit harder of a time, and it doesn't have that crazy fast f2.8 throughout the focal range either. This is at 200, wide open at f5.6, and as you can see as we go through some photos here, it does a decent job keeping up, but it will back focus quite quickly. And in my overall experience, I did find that it will kind of go out of focus, but it will actually correct. And then as you can see here, kind of keep up and nail focus. And then you'll have a couple decent ones and it will kind of lose it again. So All in all, I find maybe about 50% of the photos that I took in these particular situations did turn out. So just be aware of that. Again, not a sports lens per se, not exactly going to be known for its consistency, but definitely capable of getting some decent shots. Just don't compare it to something like, say, the 70-180. That's a sports lens. It's faster. It's also bigger and heavier. So if you do want to see a comparison or a review on that, I'll link those here for you. So with fast moving subjects, it's not going to be the greatest. And do keep in mind, being a newer lens, I do expect that Tamron will release some firmware improving the algorithm of the overall autofocus speed and reliability. Now, I don't want you to be confused here. This lens is absolutely going to keep up with the majority of the things that you throw at it. I always do my best to test them in the most stressful situations, so you don't have to. But for the average photographer, this thing's going to be great for pretty much everything. You can shoot portraits with it, you can shoot landscapes, and with its impressive minimum focus distance, you can shoot macro-like shots even at 28mm. I love how Tamron's engineering some of its newer lenses to give us these capabilities. It really makes them fun, and this lens is one of the most versatile that you can buy. Here's an example of that in action. You can see that you can actually get quite a bit closer at 28mm, allowing for some really interesting perspectives. Although it only has 7 aperture blades, you can get some really nice transitions and blurred backgrounds and take advantage of that f2.8 when you're up close to your subjects. Check out the focal range to see exactly how versatile this lens really is. It's quite impressive. If you've made it this far and you haven't already, you might as well hit that subscribe button and make sure you let me know down in the comments what you like and what you don't like about this lens. Let's have a look at the sharpness and optics of this lens now. And right away you can see wide open here at f2.8 at 28mm. There is some vignetting. The center of the image is actually quite nice and sharp. The corners, however, are, well, nothing too impressive. Stop down to f4 to see that improve a little bit, and 5.6 to see it quite improved a lot. Now down to f8 is probably going to be our best image here. The center is nice and sharp, and the corners are, well, decent. And remember, this is a very versatile focal range, so having a 28-200mm, you can't expect perfect image quality. Now f11 is still looking good, and anything past about f13, you're going to start to see some of that softness in the corners once again. Overall, pretty darn decent. Now let's have a look zoomed in all the way to 200mm, and now our maximum aperture is f5.6. It's pretty much the same story. The center is decently sharp, and the corners, however, are, well, they're adequate. Stop down to f8 for a little bit of an improvement. Again, the center is nice and sharp, and stop down to f16 to see that haze and a little bit of softness creep into the corners again, but a completely and absolutely usable performance, and for such a versatile lens, I'm quite impressed. Next, having a look at the distortion and vignetting of this lens, you can see there is quite a bit of vignetting, especially wide open here at f2.8. Stop down to f4 for a noticeable improvement, or of course use your profile correction available in Lightroom. Here at 200mm, it's pretty much the same story. Use your profile correction to see the difference, and there is a little bit more distortion here. Again, also stop down to see a bit of that vignetting disappear. Overall, for what this lens is, being a 28-200, Tamron's done a great job when it comes to controlling distortion and vignetting here. It's also worth noting that in my experience, thanks to Tamron's BBAR or broadband anti-reflective coating, this lens does do a great job at handling reflections and flare. One downside of this lens is the lack of image stabilization. At 200mm, if you don't have IBIS, you are going to notice some significant shake, and this is what that's going to look like. When you are zoomed in, you don't have that fast f2.8 aperture anymore. 5.6 means you're going to have to bump up that ISO, and that's when image stabilization would really come in handy. It is what it is. No, it's not perfect. It does have a variable aperture, it doesn't have image stabilization, but it does have a lot going for it. Look at the price, look at the size and the weight, look at it optically. Look at the minimum focus distance. If you're a creator like me, you can absolutely use it in the studio. Wide open at f2.8 at 28mm, you can film, and this is exactly what it looks like. But you can also take it out and shoot pretty much anything with it. Because of all these things, it makes it quite a unique lens. Rating this lens in terms of performance, I'm actually quite impressed with it overall. Like I said, it's not perfect, but for the price, well, I give it 4 stars. So wrapping up, I think this lens is a fantastic option for somebody that's an intermediate looking for a great all-in-one lens. Its size and weight means it's going to be great for traveling, and it's a very interesting lens in that it can shoot at f2.8 and has that awesome minimum focus distance, making it really fun to shoot. It's also going to be a great lens for creators on a budget. As a whole, I give this lens 4 solid stars. And if you happen to be a subscriber, you also know that I like to rate things on a scale from never think about again to consider to definitely buy. And in this case, I'd strongly consider it. So there you go, guys. There's my take on the Tamron 28-200, a very interesting lens if you ask me. And definitely let me know your thoughts and all of your questions and your comments down below. If you want to pick this lens up, I'll leave affiliate links for you down there as well. And like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.